What's up guys, it's Valkia. During my many hours playing Pharah, over 1,000 hours to be precise, I've had many people who might join my stream or in my matches that would say they have a Widowmaker switch before the game has even begun. While on paper, Widowmaker without doubt is of course a Pharah counter. Under the right circumstances, Pharah can be a huge counter for Widowmaker. So much so that she's further down my list of potential worries during a match. And typically, I like the opposing team having a Widowmaker so long as the circumstances are right. So what are the right circumstances, you might ask? Well, it's all down to the map you're playing on. The overall goal of you as Pharah is to use the environment to get as close to the Widowmaker as possible before making your attack. Let's have a look at a couple of examples of when it really works and when it's more difficult for Pharah. Let's take Temple of Anubis for example, and that we're on defense. Widowmakers on each map typically has a set place they'll be to give them a better overview of the area, and you'll learn where these are the more you play Pharah or any hero for that matter. Knowing this, we can position ourselves outside of the line of sight of the Widowmaker. Firstly, let's talk about why Widowmaker is actually very easy to kill and weak to Pharah if you play correctly. Firstly, Widowmaker at her strongest is normally standing very still and scoped in. This means she limits her field of view, meaning anything closer or above could potentially be missed. The only cue a Widowmaker normally has when I'm attacking is based on the sound of my thrusters. I'll cover in more detail on how to ensure a more successful attack, even if they hear you. As we said, Widowmakers normally play in a typical location, so let's see the route options we have to get close to the Widowmaker here without her seeing us. Part 1 of attacking a Widowmaker is getting close enough to a location for a dive. A little tip which has helped me at higher level is that Widowmakers will normally be distracted when a big team fight's happening, of course, as you'd imagine. This gives you the element of surprise since they're feeling a bit safer that your whole team are kind of engaged with other people, but she might not be thinking about you. The foundation for dealing with Widowmaker is the same on each map. Even though I'm showing an example here on Temple of Anubis, the method works across any maps which have multiple routes to the back line, which avoids Widowmaker's line of sight. What you need to be conscious of is how much noise you're making. If the Widowmaker has an idea that you're coming for her, she'll be prepared for it. So you need to move quickly using the dive technique that I'll be covering shortly.
Widow's up right.
Widow's up top. Widow's up top.
I'm going for it. Come on up. Jump.
So let me explain what actually went through my head when taking out this Widowmaker. There's more than you think. So first of all, I know the Widowmaker's distracted with my current team because she's shooting at them. That means she's scoped in with limited vision. Secondary, I know where the Widowmaker's positioned because of the kind of bullet trace, you can see the red line. And that means I know in my head where I'm lining up my first shot, which is up on the top left-hand side. That's more information than the Widow knows about where I am, so I have the advantage right now. What I'm also doing here is I'm dipping down and then using my boost. What this actually does, because the ceiling's so low in this game, the skybox, it kind of makes you bounce up and then forward a little bit, which kind of pushes you. So it's a little bit of a technique of movement, but then that pushes me a bit forward to the Widowmaker. Now, once the rocket actually hits the Widowmaker, what then happens is because she's positioned so close to the left, she's then going to air strafe. She's not going to get knocked straight backwards because that never happens. They always go either to one side or the other. And I know from experience that she's going to bounce to the right-hand side, so I line up my second shot ready so that the rocket is going to collide with her as she bounces in the air. Even if you're in tricky situations, sometimes you're in a good position to kind of keep yourself covered. In this one, I'm using the hover to go up, and you can see that at no point really is the bridge seen, so the Widowmaker can't see you and she can't do damage. And what you're doing then is pushing forward and making sure that you get into a good position to where you can dive her and that she's not going to expect it.
I'm gonna dive the Widow.
Sniper.
Widow dead.
This second technique of taking down Widowmakers is called the dive. I love doing this one because it looks really cool. So, as you can see in this clip, I can see the Widowmaker and she can see me at this point where it's freeze framed. What I need to do from here is get myself a little bit closer to the Widowmaker, using the environment so that I keep myself safe, getting ready for the dive. To do a dive, you need to concussive blast towards your target and then do a boost. You need to make sure that you're going to be in range, that you can kind of be very close to them rather than being a bit too far away where they could potentially have the advantage. With the boost, I actually wait until I can just see the Widowmaker, and then I'll use it because what will happen is the Widowmaker then has the flick shot to try and take me out, which is actually a very difficult shot even for some of the higher level Widowmakers to do. So what I'll do is I'll kind of boost up, and at this level, Widowmakers won't stand still and take the rocket. They'll kind of move to the left or the right if they know that I'm shooting directly at them, but they'll try and stay scoped in. So I knew instinctively that she's going to move over to my left-hand side, so I put a rocket placement right to the left and she walks straight into it. I know how fast Widowmakers, when they're scoped in, move, so I could predict that. Then what happens is that the Widowmaker gets bounced up into the sky. and then I actually put a rocket onto her directly. Now, the Widow actually bounced backwards. I did say earlier that the Widows kind of go left and right, which is kind of typical. There are cases where Widowmakers do go up into the sky. Now, I need to put a rocket into that Widow quicker than she can charge her next shot. Here's an example on a map which you normally wouldn't particularly play Pharah on. Watch how I use the environment to get as close as I can to the Widowmaker and then go for the dive. Same technique again. So how do you survive if the Widowmaker has grapple? The ideal solution to this is that you try not to use both your abilities where possible. This means if a Widowmaker uses grapple to try and escape, you can use boost or concussive blast to chase her, staying as close as possible. With practice, you can then take out Widowmakers in the air when they've used grapple. Taking out airborne Widowmakers is a difficult task, but over time you will become used to it, and it's something which has become one of my specialities. I love to do it because it just looks so cool. A good way to practice this is to play some deathmatch. Normally there'll be a couple of Widowmakers and you'll be able to get some practice in. It might be quite frustrating to begin with, but just keep at it. It's all about precision with Pharah. You need to make sure that you hit your shots, especially when diving. Your first shot is one of the most important shots you can make, because if you miss that, you're going to give them the advantage. I also said that I would talk about maps which wouldn't work too well, and always a great example here would be Ilios Ruins. While it can work, there isn't much environment to move closer to the Widowmaker, which then gives her the advantage. Widowmaker and Pharah are counters to each other depending on the map. So next time you're playing Pharah versus a Widowmaker, just think about where she could be and how you can get close to her. That's how you determine if Pharah can counter Widowmaker. You also need to have the mechanical ability and precision to back up the dive, which is why most people think Widowmaker shits all over Pharah, because a lot of people don't have that. With practice, you can be a nightmare for Widowmakers. I hope this video has helped anybody who thought Widow versus Pharah was a one-way street, and for anybody who plays Pharah on how to deal with Widowmakers. There is quite a lot to keep in mind, and it's going to take quite a bit of practice, but it is definitely possible. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. If you want to come support me, you can over at twitch.tv/Valkia. I am a full-time content creator on YouTube and Twitch, so any Prime subs or any Twitch subscribes really help me out a ton. I'm also going to put my how to counter hit scans with Pharah link in the description of this video, so you can learn a little bit more on how to counter McCree's soldiers along with Widowmakers.